Welcome, everyone, to Lessons Learned, a new series of conversations with friends of Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology. I'm so happy to launch this new series with a good friend of the institution, Segun Idowu, who is the president of Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, otherwise known as BECMA. And we are going to have a wonderful conversation. And I'd like to actually start with giving the floor to you to have an opportunity to tell people what BECMA is and how you came to lead this important organization at such a critical time.
Well, Dr. Francis, I very much appreciate the opportunity not only support you as a friend of mine and of BECMA, but also the Benjamin Franklin Institute, which is a long-standing and long-serving and important institution in our community. So very happy to be here today. So I have the great and good fortune of serving as the president of BECMA. It's been around for 5 years now, since 2015. And the board asked me to serve in this role following a campaign I led over in Hyde Park, running for state representative. And we were pushing for some bold ideas to enter the State House, and the board offered me the opportunity to go about it another way, to join this organization and continue our push for equity across the state. A little about BECMA, for those who may not know, is we were founded 5 years ago in November of 2015 in response to a report that we may not know the name of it, but we know the statistics from it. It was called The Color of Wealth. Published by the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. And we all know at least one of the statistics from that report, and that was the median net worth of white and Black families. And what they found was the median net worth of the white family in Greater Boston was $247,500, and the median net worth of Black families was $8. And, a lot of folks were upset about this, and it alarmed the whole city. And there was one major meeting in Dorchester. About 700 Black people came out to Prince Hall over in Grove Hall. And one of the things that came out of that conversation was BECMA, this idea, an organization that if we're going to eliminate the racial wealth gap, one of the ways to do that is through standing up and supporting Black businesses, because they locate in our community, they hire people from our community, and they give back to our community. So BECMA is the chief advocacy organization for the over 2,000 Black firms here in the Commonwealth, which employ 14,000 Massachusetts residents and contribute over $1 billion to the state economy. And we're every day working to advocate for those businesses, working to lead events and conversations, much like you're doing today, which are focused on solutions and connecting our businesses to one another and to capital and other resources and contracts to help them thrive and scale up.
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction. This is really important work. I can't think of a more critical time to be tackling issues from a systemic point of view and perspective. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about BECMA, and particularly your leadership there. And speaking of that, I'd love to talk specifically about workforce development. BFIT sees itself as an organization that is at the nexus of workforce development and education, post-secondary education. We happen to use that degreeing and credentialing as a tool to advance workforce development. But there are many other ways to go about it. And I'm curious about what you see as the biggest opportunities to improve workforce development from the perspective of entrepreneurs and the types of organizations that you represent, particularly as we in 2021 are looking forward to emerging from the real devastating effects of COVID-19. And I think as that pandemic is brought under control, we're still going to be left with the effects of systemic racism and other things that have made the pandemic even more destructive in communities of color. So again, my question is specifically, what are the opportunities to really change how workforce development advances in the wake of the pandemic, the public health pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, we're also looking forward to post-pandemic, which sounds like it's far away, but we know it's within sight. Looking forward to being out and about again, and everyone being safe and healthy. On the workforce front, the pandemic, the very, very thin silver lining of this has been the opportunity for folks to sit back and reflect and take a look at their business and retool and prepare for shifting to other industries. The issue in the Black community in particular, but Black and Brown overall, is that a lot of our businesses and entrepreneurs were in service-based industries, which of course are being heavily impacted by COVID-19. A quick stat is that after the Great Recession, the Brookings Institution found that minority-owned businesses added 1.8 million jobs to the economy between 2007 and 2012, and that white-owned businesses lost 1.6 million jobs. And so what that showed and proved to us, again, is that minority-owned businesses were critical to not only saving the economy, but ensuring that our folks are employed with sustainable wages and benefits that help to protect our families. But the reason we were able to do that was because our businesses were in retail, they were in hair care, personal care, restaurants. But the problem is that those are the exact industries that are going to be impacted for decades to come because of COVID-19. And so the opportunity that we're seeing as an organization, as far as entrepreneurs and business owners go, is the chance to shift over to emerging industries that are going to thrive beyond the pandemic. So whether it be in the green economy, whether it be in transportation, of course, here in Massachusetts, cannabis, et cetera, all these, life sciences, so our push as an organization is to help our entrepreneurs make that transition. I'm not going to use the word pivot. That was a 2020 word, and I don't want to bring any 2020 energy into 2021, but to help our folks transition to these industries. Because as they're transitioning, again, like I said in my opening, Black businesses are the ones who provide jobs for Black people. And the same is true for the Latinx community, for the Asian community, et cetera. And so, so that means that our workforce goes in the direction of our businesses as well. And so we're making sure to prepare our businesses for the light at the end of the tunnel and to be ready for those opportunities so that we're bringing our whole community with us to prepare for 21st century jobs.
That's important, an important perspective, and I thank you for sharing that. I'm wondering what the membership sees as the role that higher education can play in helping to propel this transition, this phase, particularly for small to medium-sized businesses. What are the ways that a college like Benjamin Franklin Institute for Technology can help to be a force for good and an ally as we really look to boost the competitiveness of the region very broadly, but specifically we want to boost the competitiveness of the businesses that you just talked about. So I'm curious about what your membership is telling you about the role of post-secondary education in the advancement of their own business goals.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got to tell you, I wish I had something new to tell you on this, but BFIT is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. I mean, you're literally preparing the workforce for our businesses once they begin to make that transition. I mean, we're going to need skilled workers to help to stand up these businesses, but you're also helping out working with entrepreneurs who understand these industries and who are going to be ready to either take over businesses that may be sunsetting as a result of COVID-19 or to help stand up new businesses that help to employ more people in our community. I would say that the role of other higher ed institutions is to support that work, and for business leaders and elected officials to support institutions like BFIT and vocational education, things like that throughout the Commonwealth to ensure that we're preparing the entire community, not just selected communities for these jobs once we make that transition. So I would say BFIT is already doing what it's supposed to be doing, and that's why I'm looking forward to sitting down with you and your team later on this year to talk about how BECMA really can be supportive of what you're doing to ensure that you're getting the resources and support that you need to continue serving our community as you have been doing.
Absolutely. And we know there's so many, I think so much wealth to be created when people who have a trade or have technical skill decide to invest in their own business. And, for many people in communities that have been disadvantaged have found that to be a path to economic sustainability and really to, again, wealth building. And so that's the part of this work that I think we need to tease out more and really provide more of an avenue for our students who are interested in that pathway to get exposed to entrepreneurship in the midst of the training that they're receiving. And for our alum as well to be connected to that pathway for themselves. So yes, definitely lots to talk about and ways for our organizations to work closely together. I think the last question that I have is really to give you an opportunity to share some of the successes that BECMA has achieved over the past year, perhaps even 6 months, knowing that advocacy is a long-term game, right? So I know that we have to really think about the future in terms of campaigns and the push that you are making for a more equitable economy in the entire Commonwealth, but specifically around Greater Boston. But I would love to know where you're seeing progress, where you're seeing some hope, or perhaps where you've seen real concrete change that we should recognize as such, because it's being in the trenches is tough work, but I think we don't recognize the wins as much as probably sometimes we should. So I'd love to know that.
Yeah, so, the last 6 months, the last year has been tough for Black businesses overall. Back in March of 2020, which feels like it was a decade ago, we actually surveyed our members just to get an understanding of how COVID-19 was impacting their business at the time. And, let's remember in early March, the state had not shut down. Many of us were not taking the pandemic as seriously as we are today. And so even at that time, though, our businesses were struggling. 90% of them said that they were in a precarious position. 60% of them said they only had cash reserves to last up to 90 days, if at all. And almost half of them said they'd have to lay people off in order to survive. That was almost a year ago. And so we know that many have been struggling ever since then, have had to make those layoffs, have been scraping by, trying to figure out how to pay the bills next month. Let alone last month if they weren't able to. So all of our energy has been toward helping our businesses survive while also preparing to help them thrive thereafter. So our successes have really come down to connecting our folks to capital as well as to commerce. And so on the state level, we've had the greatest success where we were continuing to advocate for financial relief to get to our businesses. If we remember, Congress passed the CARES Act last summer, and the intent of this, of the money there through the Paycheck Protection Program, was to help our businesses keep people on the job. The problem was that 90% of minority-owned businesses didn't get access to the PPP, and that was particularly for the Black community one of the reasons, or two of the reasons. In order to get the loan, you had to have a commercial relationship with a bank. And we either didn't have that relationship because banks don't give us loans because of systemic racism, or we remembered, I mentioned the Great Recession earlier, they remembered that the reason that happened was due to predatory lending on our community. And so with those two pieces of history behind us, our businesses just didn't have those relationships and therefore did not get access to PPP. So for us, the push was to make sure that if we are not getting federal dollars, that we were getting it from somewhere else. And so, on the state level, we pushed Governor Baker to make some resources available. And, he saw the need to be able to do that because the health of our Commonwealth's economy is contingent on the health of the Black economy. Toward the end of last year, he made over $700 million available in financial relief for all small businesses, but prioritized access for minority and women-owned businesses. And so in the first round of that money, where there was $50 million available, all of that money went to minority and women-owned businesses as a result of the efforts of not just BECMA, but also our partners like Amplify Latinx and Mass Association of CDCs, LISC Boston, and so many others, who are really pushing to make sure that the communities that we are serving, which are the most impacted, are getting that relief. But on the other side, you know, loans and grants and lines of credit are really important to help our businesses stay alive. But what helps to stabilize our businesses, what helps to help our businesses scale is commerce, doing business with our businesses. And so one of the other things that we were able to achieve on the state level was to ensure that the Supplier Diversity Office, which previous to 2020 was operating more of a program under the state rather than its own entity to make these transactions happen, we were able to successfully make that an independent agency in the state government so that they have more resources, more staff, more funding, and more authority to ensure that minority-owned businesses are getting access to all of the billions of dollars of contracts that come through the state, as well as enforcement powers to ensure that those who are winning deals are actually getting them. And so that's a really important piece of the puzzle of making sure that when we're reading these reports, whether it be on the state level or recently we see even here in the city of Boston, that we see that 1% or less than 1% of spending with minority-owned businesses, despite there being a healthy population of people of color, both in Boston, but throughout the Commonwealth. In order to make that happen, we need effective institutions and agencies that have the power to make sure that we're holding everybody accountable. So those have been some pretty major wins for the organization that I just joined in 2018 and has only been around since 2015. It's important for us, but we know that the work is not done. And that's why, again, we're looking forward to working with BFIT and all of our partners to ensure we're attacking the problem holistically. Everything that BFIT is doing has helped to eliminate the racial wealth gap, and we're hoping to catch up and make sure that we're providing some backup support to all the work that BFIT is doing on the business end as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Segun. We definitely feel the support. And as we prepare to move and have really a renaissance of the work that we're doing, but from the heart of Nubian Square, we are definitely looking forward to putting things in place now so that we can be even more of a pipeline of training, and that the businesses that you support and that are members of BECMA can really continue to source their talent from BFIT, and that BFIT can continue to rely on BECMA and the tools that are there so that people understand where they can go to learn about entrepreneurship and to really leverage the education that they're receiving if they'd like to go into business for themselves. So I thank you for the advocacy work that you and your team are doing. And it's taking off and making a big difference in terms of the strength of our local economy. So thank you so much for being in conversation with me today, and all of the ways that we've worked together in the past. So we look forward to building on that in the future.
Same here. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Thank you.
You too.